chair. Come squeeze up. Squeeze in. Squeeze out. Talk your neighbor. Tell your neighbor to be quiet. Bryan. Guys, you can come to the front. It'll be better if you can see. If you can't see the picture in the TV, you won't be able to see you. Bryan, are you here?
Yeah, right?
Hi, Bryan.
Yeah, we gotta just. Sorry, just one thing. We do have the stream here. Bring it forward.
Where's Bryan? Under Bryan.
Oh, so sorry.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sorry. You're good, yeah.
And if you're a photographer, come up to the front. And if you're the media person, come up to the front.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Okay, if you were a volunteer, how many people have been to DeSci before? Awesome. All right, well, we're going to jump right in. First off, if you were a volunteer tonight, raise your hand. We just want to thank all the volunteers. Thank you guys all. Also, we want to thank All in All. All in All helped to, it's a social network that helped to support this. We're going to hear more about them. We also want to thank Spring Place for this amazing space that they're providing us. So definitely make sure to get another drink and drink up tonight. Lastly, we want to thank Matthew Donovan for helping out tonight as well.
Hey everyone, thanks for all of the weird people that came out to make everyone uncomfortable tonight. We're really glad that you are bringing that vibe tonight. Does anybody feel awkward? Say yeah. Okay, maybe everyone here is weird. We accomplished the mission. So we're gonna have two people come up first. So the first person is my friend Amina Khan. She's a writer, and she's also going to be doing Immortality Reading Group. She's going to tell you about it, and you can get involved if you want to try to live forever. Amina Khan.
Hi, my name is Prada Horseshoe. I'm here to invite you to a reading group that I'm launching this fall. It's a Russian cosmist reading group. The Russian cosmists had two central beliefs. The first was that they thought the most important task for humanity was to defeat death. Not only did they think that we should defeat death, but they thought that we should resurrect every single person who ever lived. The second task of Russian cosmism was to move to outer space. Because clearly once we've resurrected everyone, there won't be enough space for us here on planet Earth. And therefore, we have to move forward and inhabit other planets across the far reaches of the universe. The Russian cosmists were thinking and writing about these ideas over 100 years ago, and their ideas directly resonate and speak to the topics and concerns that I'm sure Bryan will be raising in his talk. But more broadly, I think that they speak to
if life is forever, then life is never, no? What does it mean to be remembered? What is to be remembered of a man who will never need to be remembered? Or a man who will always be around? Nothing, you may be inclined to say, but not the way Bryan does it. Let's look, for example, at Mr. Johnson's nighttime erections. famously discussed on Elon Musk's X.com. For extended periods of 3 hours and 15 minutes, Bryan Johnson's cock is rock hard, or should I say iceberg hard? Yes, because even at the age of 47, Mr. Johnson's cock gets as hard as the iceberg that sank the Titanic. You may have heard of this ship, its story immortalized by a very famous film, a long film, a 3-hour and 15-minute long film, a familiar length of time for Mr. Johnson. Another thing Bryan Johnson is known for is sleeping. I'm famously known for this too. I sleep every single night. If you don't, you probably do drugs, which are bad for you, and you should stop or you will die. Which is only cool if you're hundreds of years old now, thanks to Bryan. It's about the reverse 27 club now. I'm gonna skip that. If I know one thing about life, though, it's this. That you can fit a lot of life into a little bit of time, and a little bit of life into a lot of time, unfortunately, too. So to me, eliminating death is a much scarier idea than dying. So if Mr. Johnson ever dies while simultaneously 12 and 402, I hope that there's a lot he has to look back at, like putting those erections to use. Like, imagine putting all of his time and money into preventing aging only to get hit by a car or something. And if you, like me, like to live embracing that someday you will die, come to the Ego and Doll party happening at Gonzo's Friday night.
Give up for capacity and their ode to Bryan Johnson's death and the life of his erection. Next we have our name now.
Oh, Ruben, are you here? Ruben. Okay, so next up we have, I just want to tell you a little bit about decentralized science. Matthew, can you go to the next slide? Go up a couple slides. One more. Keep going. Okay, so what is decentralized science? That's presumably why you're all here. So decentralized science is how to improve science using the blockchain. And so what does that mean? So you put a lot of data on chain and to be able to know where it came from and give people credit for when they do it. So imagine a world where sort of the entire internet is a laboratory instead of just like a university is a laboratory. And this future isn't far off. Like we have decentralized finance and now we're sort of moving into decentralized science. Next slide. Stay off your phone. Yeah. Okay. So, what are a couple things that you can do with this? You can do funding. So you can raise money on the internet much more easily than you can raise money from the government. Next slide. You can do publications much more easily. So you can publish on chain and have peer review done on chain instead of having to do going through a journal, which can oftentimes be expensive and incorrect. Next slide. You can share data. So instead of data going into Elsevier or in some other thing like that, you can publish your data on chain and get paid for it instead of it just going into the black hole that is the university system. Also, the people in the middle can sit down. We got some. It'll help the people in the back see a little bit, if possible.
Yeah, we have a long line.
Oh, okay. And then next up. We have the community. So with decentralized science, you can have 1,000 times more people than there will be in the future. There are scientists than there are today. Right now, the number of scientists is artificially suppressed because the university system only admits a certain number of people, but that isn't actually the number of people that are capable of doing science. Next slide. And lastly, you can have much more interesting types of governance. So instead of people just being listening to their principal investigator, you can have liquid democracy and all sorts of interesting ways of building a scientific community. Next slide. And lastly, there's a huge problem in science today, which is around reproducibility. So only a small percentage of papers are able to be reproduced. So we're building a lot of types of science on top of this false notion that all science is good and correct. Next slide. So the future is going to be much more driven by AI instead of by people. Next slide. And so this is what decentralized science is about, and this is why we started this monthly meetup called Decentralized Science New York City. And so we have Bryan Johnson coming today. We got 3 types of products. We got the olive oil, we've got the other two things that we've got. So we're going to be raffling these off. So next slide. If you tag us, we want to hear your hottest take. So tag DeSciNYC on Instagram, on Twitter, and we'll be picking winners by the end of the night. And you will have your choice of Bryan Johnson's cocoa powder, longevity mix, or his legendary snake oil, olive oil. So choose your poison. We've had a ton of different speakers. We've had Martin Shkreli. We've had the guys right in the back. We've had the guy that invented the NFTs. We've had the guy at Research Hub. We've had Bryan Johnson. We've had the guy who did enhanced games. We've had Michael Levin from Tufts University who talked about bioelectricity. We had David Shore, who many of you already know, to talk about the politics of science. And now we'll have Bryan Johnson. Next slide. Okay, so this is the DeSciNYC community. Next slide. We have our website with all our previous videos online, so if you missed one, you can see it later. And next, these are our upcoming events. We have Jo Zahner, who is the amazing, she was one of the first people that did CRISPR on herself, and she's a very big innovator. We have Noor Siddiqui coming. There's QR codes here if you want to scan it. She's doing a very interesting embryo testing thing where you fertilize an egg and then screen it for the type of genetic disorders that it might have. It's a very important type of work. Next slide. And then we have Sheridan Claiborne coming to talk around sexual health, and he's doing all sorts of experiments on penile optimization. Woo! All right, next slide. We're also starting this really cool project. How many people here care about seed-free oils? Woo! Anyone? All right, seed-free oils. Okay. So, what does this mean? We're going to crowdsource all the different types of seed restaurants that use seed oils in New York City. This is the first time we've ever tried to do such a thing. Next slide. But we're going to do it in a roundabout way that involves way too much technology. So you're going to submit it with some tokens, you find a restaurant and you submit it with a bounty attached to it. Next slide. We're going to use a bunch of AI agents to call this restaurant, to email the restaurant, and to check the restaurant. So there's going to be a consensus among AI agents that are going to try and figure out if what you said is correct. And if it is confirmed that that restaurant is not with seed oils, you earn a percentage of the revenue that data set generates. Next slide. And next slide. Guys, quiet in the back. All right, if you want to go nutless, you can scan this QR code. We've already pre-populated it with a bunch of seed-free restaurants. This is just the beginning. We're trying to do more interesting things with DeSciNYC as opposed to, we love the parties obviously, but we're trying to actually generate some interesting data sets as well. So if you're interested, you can scan this QR code. Guys, quiet. All right, shut up! All right, and then lastly, this event isn't free, so we started a company. If you guys are looking for a job, we're hiring for people that are developers, that are data scientists, that have an interest in marketing or business development. We're backed by some of the top crypto VCs, so you can scan this QR code, and we're happy to have you guys apply for a job. If you have a question, you can also send me an email. All right, that's it? All right, that's all. Back. One more. All right, let's do a group photo before you're here. All right, wow. All right, everyone, smile. Do we want to get one of the actual photographers up here? Justin. All right.
Say cheese on 3, 2.
Yeah, that's hard to pull off.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, cheese.
Thanks, y'all.
Do you have your crop top ready?
Okay. Can we transfer it over to the speaker system here? How do I do? Oh, there we go. All right, this one. All right. Brian, can you say anything?
I can.
All right, can we get the microphone? Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. So say something again, Bryan.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Perfect. Amazing. Okay. So I guess I'm gonna go to the front, and you won't be able to see me, but we're looking at you. If that's okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Bryan.
Thank you for coming here tonight, virtually, and we're excited for you to come back in the future. But you used to live in New York City, right?
I did.
What made you want to move to sort of LA, and how have you found sort of LA in New York City? And would you recommend, if you want to live forever, getting out of New York, or?
I went to New York, so I had, when I was 34 years old, in 1 year's time, I got a divorce from a 13-year marriage. I sold my company, emerged from chronic depression, and left my born into religion. And so it was like this life-changing moment, and I went to New York in that window of time to try to rebirth myself. So I love New York so much. I miss it, and I come back, I have such fond feelings. It's such a wonderful city. I love the people there.
This is another universe there, Bryan Johnson is living fast and dying young. Like, what is the opposite of longevity? What is Bryan Johnson that sort of looking to, that is like, looking to improve quality over quantity?
Yeah, really, the endeavor I'm doing, and is the audio okay? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people observe that what I'm doing is about diet and sleep and nighttime erections. It's really not. It's about this contemplation that if you do this thought experiment, that you're hanging out in the 25th century, and you're listening to what they're saying in whatever form their communication is, and they're observing what we Homo sapiens did in the early 21st century that allowed intelligence to thrive in this part of the galaxy. It's an interesting thought experiment. What would they say? Like, what did we do? And I think they might say that this is the moment where we realized we were transitioning from death being inevitable to possibly extending our horizon of lifespan and health span to degrees which we can't even contemplate. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to suggest a new reality is here that is unthinkable to us in almost every way. And that it really starts with our understanding of life, because right now the world is built upon a die mentality. If you're going to die anyways, you can YOLO your way into existence. And so I'm trying to introduce that we really are at an inflection point in time, and that we should be mindful of what kind of philosophy we have at our core.
Amazing. And what do you think are sort of the key things that we can help out with to make that happen?
I mean, right now, if you think about it, humanity plays one game right now. We play capitalism. And even if you're religious or you're in a different country, it doesn't matter. Every human on this planet plays capitalism because you need money for things. And so it's a game we play. It has one number. How much money do you have? And so we, as a species, we're very good at playing games. Don't Die is a very similar game. Like a couple of years ago when I came up with this idea, I wanted to demonstrate to be the most don't die person in human history. And so we did this process where we measured every organ of my body. We tried to say, like, what is my current state of affairs? What is the biological age? And then we went through all the scientific literature and we applied all the science to me, and we measured me again and did that process again and again and again, trying to measure every single way my body dies every second of every day, and how we slow that speed of aging and how we reverse the aging damage. And so we try to play the same game with numbers. Like, what is my die score today and how do I lower it? You can apply the same mapping to other things, like smoking one cigarette costs you 11 minutes of life. So you could say, do back of the envelope math, a child's school lunch with pizza, chocolate milk, and canned vegetables, let's just call it a die score of 7 minutes. And so you could actually quantify die and don't die in the same way you have numerical numbers for capitalism. So it's feasible that we as a species play don't die at large as our single game, as we build AI, as we take care of the planet, as we take care of ourselves, as we understand each other.
And like thinking bigger, like, are you thinking like you need to start a country? And can you tell us sort of more about like what you're doing with Balaji and what's happening there?
Yeah, so Balaji and I are starting basically a network state school in Malaysia in a month from now. And we're trying to reimagine how we build the future from every vector of technology. And so like the imagination that I have, which is kind of unimaginable, is that by 2027, at the time in which it's imagined that AI, that the models we have right now, like ChatGPT, is kind of at the stage of a smart high schooler. If you imagine a similar level of progress that we've seen over the past few years, then AI may be like equivalent of roughly an AI researcher on that rough level of capability. Now, if we have billions and billions of AI researchers with that level of capability, we're going to start approaching this really fast feedback cycle of improvement. And so by that same time, I think what would be great is if we could coincide as a species and say, there's a billion of us around the world that self-identify with don't die. That we basically say that, and to be clear, these concepts are kind of, they're deep, but don't die is the most played game by every human on this planet every second of every day. It's played more than capitalism, it's played more than any religion. And it's no, don't die in 20 years, it's don't die right now is the most played game. And so I think if there's a billion of us in the world and we are everywhere, we're in AI companies, we are in political organizations, we're in companies, that we embrace this philosophy that's what we do as a species as we're transitioning to something new, that it's time to reimagine what our primary beliefs are and how we build together.
So if it's a game, actually, do you think that we should gamify it totally? Should you get points for sleeping, points for running, points for lifting weights, points for eating healthy, points for doing things on Strava? Like in the same way that we have like a life economy now, like could we, instead of having like a diet economy, like what we have like if you smoke a cigarette for 11 minutes, could we have like the opposite of that, right? Where you're encouraged to do good things. Like expand on sort of what you think like an app or something like that could be like.
Yeah, the Don't Die Out app is out next week. So we've tried to quantify a daily die score using the best science. And so, whether we like it or not, we all play games every day. We keep points on all the things we do. And it's just like how we're structured and how we understand the world. And so it's meant to be fun. So a lot of people have built apps focused on your health data where you look at your information, but we've built a social first app where it's really about experiencing life with each other through the framework of health. And so, we'll see how it goes. We'll iterate very quickly, but we're trying to once you embrace this idea, you kind of see a new reality every day of how the world kind of runs on die, and it brings to your attention how there's an alternative way of being.
Bryan, I think you're totally right that. Hi guys, I'm Danny. Pleasure. Hi Bryan.
Hi.
He's an artist. He's a very famous New York City artist here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Bryan, I totally agree that this idea of not dying is, there you go. I totally agree that idea of not dying is truly, this widespread game that is played across cultures, across time. But the way that you approach it is arguably quite unconventional. And I kind of want to give you the opportunity to share with the audience what some of these noteworthy approaches are that have caught news headlines.
Yeah, so I'll share a few basic things, and then I'll share maybe some ideas behind this. It's really the power laws of health that we all know, which have the highest yield. So sleep, diet, and exercise. And I know we all kind of roll our eyes, but they really do deliver the highest benefits in health and wellness. They're also the hardest to master. Like every force in reality is stopping us from trying to get good sleep. It's impossibly hard to eat nutritious foods in the world. Like the food supply is very dirty, and we're also busy that it's very hard to find time to exercise. So I'd say, like, practically speaking, that's really where the highest yield is at. I mean, philosophically, I'll just tell you guys that, like, I host these Don't Die dinners at my home, and it's about a 2.5 hour long conversation, typically between 10 to 20 people, and it takes that long to walk through what the philosophy of Don't Die is. You have to basically walk through all these preconceived notions about reality. And even at the very, very, very end, you're just beginning to understand this idea. Like, you may hear it, and on the surface, it's like, oh yeah, of course, like, don't die. But it really is this layered approach where what I'm fundamentally suggesting, and this is gonna go over your heads, but we are in this moment where we are transitioning from a species of knowing to one of not knowing. And from one where we are the primary source of discovery and creating new knowledge to where AI is going to assume that role. And so when you're transitioning from knowing and discovery to not knowing and not being the one that's doing the primary discovery on some time scale, it renders us in a humble position where we don't know. And so, like, for example, a practical suggestion for this is like when I was going to school in a couple years ago, 20 years ago, I could say, I'm going to study blank, become blank, and I'm going to do this until I retire. So I could see out my entire lifespan. Whereas my son right now, he just started school. He has no idea what to study to be in the workforce 2 or 3 years from now. Like there's just no way of knowing. He started with physics, but should he be in the humanities? And so it's really a good example of like how the future crashes in, where we increasingly can't see, years ahead of us, and soon it'll be weeks. And so like when you're in that situation, a new philosophy needs to emerge to like how we as a species deal with the inability to plan.
Bryan, I mean, it's everything you're saying is very interesting, but I hear you talking about sleep, diet, and exercise. Yet what I'm seeing on the news is so focused on, gene editing, blood transfusions. I understand like the importance of sleep, diet, and exercise, but I know that you're not suggesting that it will help you live forever. So I think that people are interested in hearing. You've gone through so many of these much more uncommon, much more experimental treatments, you could call them. Have you found none of them to compare to sleep, diet, and exercise? And with that, we already understand that sleep, diet, and exercise are not going to make us live forever. And although I wish they would.
Yeah, it's so like a few interesting stats. So I started this when I was chronologically 43 years old, and now I'm 46, and my biomarkers are in the top 1 percentile for almost everything. It's like speed of aging, cardiovascular ability, that's top 1.5% of 18-year-olds, total inflammation, strength, fat, muscle, like just down the list. And so like, it's interesting, I have among the best biomarkers in the entire world. And so it's been amazing at how responsive my body has been when I really had ran myself into the ground. And so these are within reach of everybody. Like for example, my speed of aging recently was 0.64, which means roughly speaking, my birthday is now every 19 months. We've dramatically slowed my speed of aging. And so the goal of this endeavor is not that we're going to solve for immortality. The goal is trying to make a sober, humble observation of where we are as a species in this moment. That after 4 billion years of evolution on this planet, we at this moment are living through the biggest evolutionary transition in our history. Like it's on a scale that we can't even begin to comprehend. And so what I'm trying to suggest is in this sober moment, what do we do? Like what? And it's like every minute, and we're all trying to decide what we do next, like what we eat next, where we go next, what I do for work, like what conversation I have with my friend. That's the thing. And so what I'm trying to say as a species, when you zoom out and you say like, what is really happening in this moment? So I'm really trying to approach this to say, this behavior of prioritizing don't die as the 0th order priority is really a representation of what we could do as a species. It's don't die individually, don't kill each other, don't kill the planet, align AI with don't die. And so if you realize the relationships there, like we treat planet Earth the same way we treat our bodies. When it comes to our bodies, it's like YOLO and like stay away, I'll do whatever I want. But we do the same thing to planet Earth. Like we treat it in the same way. And when you have AI and you're giving birth to AI, you apply it using all the philosophies we have as humans today. So really above all, it's not about immortality. It's not about trying to even break through on like a 200-year lifespan. It's to say we live in this very small moment of time and we have a really serious situation on our hands.
And like, if the AI, before you ask the question, so we are a pro-troll event. So if you want to drag us on social media, you actually will potentially win us award. So the best troll tweet gets one of these things. And then you can tell us if it works. And if not, you can also make fun of that.
I love it.
Right. This is obviously in line with the Bryan Johnson modality.
Bryan, I can't help but feel like what you practice and you preach are just such different things right now, and I'm not kind of like come up your neck or anything, but you're telling me that like I should sleep well and eat well, but then you are, you are editing your DNA, you are doing, you're putting electricity into your penis. Like these are very different things. So like, keep it real with us. Like you are doing something very different than that. Tell us about it.
Danny wants you to talk about the radical stuff.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so so I've done my first longevity gene therapy. I did that in September, and I think it was effective in dropping my speed of aging by about 10%. It also increased my muscle mass by 7%. The plasma transfusions didn't work for me. I had them from an 18-year-old, my son, and I had no effect on my biological markers. But for my dad, who's not in good health, and he's 71, he slowed his speed of aging by the equivalent of 25 years. So it was really big. It actually matched the effect size that you saw in the animal models. So for my dad, who's in the early stages of cognitive decline, it had a huge impact on his abilities. We did trying to think some peptide stuff that was pretty cool, although it's very hard to measure those effects. The penis rejuvenation actually worked. Right, the marker that actually mattered was nighttime erections, which is not a marker that people talk about. Of course, like when you talk about boners, it's like everyone smiles and laughs. It's like a funny topic, but it really is this really important health marker: psychological health, cardiovascular health, neurological health. It's like one of the most important things for human health. So when I started talking about these nighttime boners, my friends would text me and be like, "I don't have any. Like, what's wrong?" And it really is like a symptom of like lack of sleep and poor diet and no exercise. You basically lose your sexual capacity. And so what I'm really trying to get at is like what I learned in the first few years of Blueprint is like we did this thymus rejuvenation therapy where like your thymus is this organ behind your sternum. It's really important for your immune system. But like you talk about it and people are like, what? I don't care. What next? You talk about boners and people are like, wait, what? Like it just makes sense. And so we were trying to demonstrate this process that you can take a baseline measurement. You can apply scientific methods. We used 2 clinical trial studies. We did the methodologies and we measured again and we said, hey, like, look, I went from nighttime erections of a 46-year-old to better than age 18. And so like, if you take the scientific method of measuring something, applying science, and then doing it again, you get these amazing results. And that can be done for your brain and your heart and your pancreas and your liver. So really, we're trying to make a point of making this understandable that the science-based approach does work in rejuvenating your body.
So I think what Danny was trying to get at is like, diet and exercise is only going to get you to 20 or 30 plus years. But I think what you're trying to make is like, AI is going to save us, is that right? Like the AI will have a brain that is 1,000 times bigger than us and be able to N-of-1 equal experiments, and that will be the thing that is the savior, and you just have to not die until that point. Is that sort of the argument?
Basically, yes. Like if you say over some time horizon in the future, 10 years, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, like some time horizon, we're going to make gains likely in extending our lifespans. And it's probably going to be gene therapies and other stuff like that, epigenetic Yamanaka factors. So it's going to happen over some time horizon. And my basic hypothesis is that AI progress is going to happen much sooner and much faster, making it the critical event that we have to plan for. And so,
do you think that the academic literature, I want to try and tie this back to decentralized science a little bit, the academic literature that exists today is accurate enough to help you? And sort of what are you trying to do, or what can we try and do to enable this AI scientist to happen? So that we no longer have to, I think everyone in the audience knows that sort of academia and research and reproducibility can oftentimes be very tricky. Is there things that we can do as part of the decentralized science community or as part of the Don't Die community to make our data on chain, to make it more accessible, so that the AI can do things so that the AI can sort of save us?
Yeah, I think so I'm so happy you exist and that you're building this layer. What I've been trying to do myself is contribute to the more foundational layer of the problem that everyone deals with on a daily basis, where do you go to bed on time or not? And if you don't go to bed on time, what do you do instead? Like, do you stay up and watch a movie? Do you hang out with your friends and drink alcohol? And we think those two things are disconnected. They're actually the same thing. That we as a species are primarily a mimetic species. We copy the behaviors of those around us. Like we think we're independent thinkers. We like to think that we actually act on our own. We don't. We're a social species and we play in mimicry. And so when you solve the foundational thing of I'm going to bed on time and my friends are going to bed on time and we're going to eat healthy and not do bad stuff, that has this really nice domino effect of rolling over into other things where we may start funding more things around health and wellness because there's momentum. But when there's this disposition of YOLO.
There's a lot of noise. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm trying to say our health habits are the actual technical scaffolding of society.
Oh, wow, thank you. Oh, okay. Thanks for everyone for quieting down for me. I'm the most soft-spoken person here. And I have a gay list, so. So I have two questions. I'm gonna ask them back to back because they kind of relate, but given your extensive work on optimizing health and longevity, how would you argue that your project serves the public benefit, particularly those who can't afford access? Would you consider making your research more accessible and public to validate and enhance your experiments? It's kind of like what we were asking about validating all of the data sets that you've presented through a network like SVN, and to create a larger pool of participants by creating a wider knowledge of that open and accessibility, because the main control, there's not enough control basically when it's just you. And I know that you recently opened up a pool of those who will engage with you, but there's still that $1,000 barrier, and I think it's $330 per month. And then the second question is, so how would you address concerns about potential conflicts of interest in your approach, especially considering people like Dr. Michael Greger's model of donating all profits to nonprofits? So if he writes a book, it goes to nonprofits, and it avoids the sale of products to prevent bias and negative incentives in the data. Would you consider partnering with somebody like Dr. Greger, who prioritizes accessibility, or you could say optimizes accessibility and unbiased information?
Yeah, I mean, so yes, on the first one, that's the goal is I've made everything I do publicly accessible. All my protocols, every success, every failure. So it's just shared openly with others. So I've tried to give everyone what I do for free after spending a ton of money on it. So I'm trying to open source. We're hoping to go to the next stage of doing a lot of people at the same time and open sourcing the data. So we're trying to go from n equals 1 to n equals many. And so we're in that stage now. On the conflict of interest, like it's so funny because like humans are going to criticize and hate everything you do no matter what, right? Like it's always been the case. So like when I did Blueprint, I open sourced everything for everyone for free. And then it went viral and everyone said, I love it, I want to do it, it's just so goddamn hard. I have all these supplements, I can't get the food, like can you make this easy for us? And like I resisted it for a year, I was like, I don't want to get into the food business, it's an awful business, it's super painful, low margins. So finally I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I spent the past 2 years of my life making it available. Like it's actually, I think, the lowest cost, highest value supplement, nutrition program ever built. Like you can't go out and buy these ingredients at a lower cost yourself. Like we are lower than what you could do on your own if you try to put this whole thing together. And so I do it, and then of course, as expected, I get hate of like, now I'm a grifter, right? Like I've done something now to like pull the wool over everyone's eyes. And so like, in my understanding of the world, there's no reason to ever pay attention to any human's opinion. Like no matter what you do, you're never going to please people. And so like, just do it the best you can. And so I think we've done something magnificent. I think we've built literally the best thing in the world. Our margins are incredibly low already. So other people like, you know, the author you mentioned, like there's virtuous models in all things. Capitalism is model, right? Philanthropy is virtuous. Philanthropy is virtuous. Like there's so many ways to be virtuous in society, and these things come and go with cultural trends of how people view it. But like I'm trying to figure out, how do you actually scale don't die to the world? I'll give you like one practical problem. When I was building Blueprint, we started sourcing our own foods for me because we were trying to control contamination in foods. So we partnered with the lab and we started testing all my supplements and all the foods I was eating from the grocery store and the farmer's market. And I discovered the food system is so dirty. It's dirtier than I thought, like just dangerously dirty. And so we started doing our own stuff, and then people started saying, hey, can I start getting this from you? Like, sure. So we have spent a year cleansing all these suppliers of heavy metals. As far as I know, we're the cleanest heavy metal provider in the whole world. Like, we've tested everything. We publish our third-party results with our products. It's all transparent. And so, like, if you say, okay, like, I'm being a grifter, no one else in the world is doing this. Like, who's gonna do it? And so, to me, this is like, it's such a fun conversation because, like,
Right.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm not getting into the lane of calling you a director. I'm just, basically Dr. Michael Grigger, who I'm just using as a model, so we're not just talking about things in theory. He wrote a book called How Not to Die. And he presents all of that information for free in blogs, and basically people have access to all of it, right? And I'm just suggesting that there's a large database of volunteers that he works with to look at every single nutrition study each year and to validate it and explain to people how that research works and how to validate that. And obviously, like what Michael's building with SBN is another way to validate that data. It's just a suggestion. It's not this is not like a personal thing. It's really just about talking about the quality of data, spreading health literacy, and just taking the project more seriously, because obviously you're thinking about this through an accelerationist lens, which is not a thing that most people in this space are, and that makes it very interesting, and it allows you to be more radical, and it creates a dialectic with the already pre-existent data that's out there.
Yep, yeah, that's totally fair. And the reason why I talk about this stuff is because I think I'm pretty misunderstood in terms of like what I'm doing, what this is about, why it matters. And oftentimes I find that when someone does understand what this whole thing's about, I do get more goodwill in the conversation. Right? Like there's like more of a meeting of like, okay, we understand each other, versus like typically I think a lot of people have a starting point with me that I'm an eccentric billionaire vampire on this vanity quest for immortality. They don't understand that I've really tried to approach this as like this deep philosophical contemplation. What do we do as a species on the eve of giving birth to superintelligence? And so I only give that bridge of people in the room who just don't know who I am or what I'm doing. I try to basically lay out the arguments of like the attacks that you've probably heard on me from your friends, that I'm a grifter or that I've planned this whole thing out, to give you back context on like the origin of this and what I'm really trying to do. But yeah, so really I'm just trying to, because the headlines have really determined people's opinions about me more than anything else.
Yeah, I have a question along like I want to get into this like AI realm, because I think this is like the interesting part. Is like, can you describe like when you're collecting data for your in your process, are you collecting it for the purpose of building a world model that is helpful for your own positions and people? And do you use like human brains to assess what you do, or are you using any sort of artificial intelligence in your daily routine to figure out which things are valid, or how using AI to analyze your data, or is it still very human driven?
Yeah, the only place we'd use AI is in literature research to try to lessen the time to find relevant studies. And so we found some pretty cool research on not well-cited studies. And so that's probably been the biggest leverage tool, but otherwise my data set's not big enough really for the application of AI. I mean, it's mostly in like, dumb spreadsheets and basic database tools.
I think that's one of the really interesting areas is like, one of the problems we have is there's a shortage of doctors, right? And like with AI, even if you're an N=1 type of person, you'll be able to have what is the equivalent of 1,000 doctors working on your behalf. In the near future, right? Like this isn't far off. Like ChatGPT-7 is probably going to be like super intelligent.
Yes.
Like, is it important even for humans to understand what is going on, or is the only thing that matters is the collection of this like valid, accurate data, and then just sort of YOLOing it to the AI and hoping it works out?
So in my dinners, I opened up this thought experiment. So I'll give it to you guys. If you had access to an algorithm that could give you the best physical and mental and spiritual health of your life, in exchange for that access, you had to do what the algorithm said. Go to bed when it said, eat what it said, exercise in the way it prescribed. Would you say yes or would you say no?
What would you guys
mainstream responses. You got some maybes. Ask the question. You got some maybes. Ask the question. Repeat the question one more time.
Point down your distance of your phone. I'm going to ask somebody a question. Honestly, I'm curious of the answer. Bryan, when you're ready, go ahead.
Okay, so I heard a bunch of yeses and I heard a bunch of nos. Is that about right?
What's the question, though? Can you repeat it for the people?
Yeah. So if you had access to an algorithm that could give you the best physical and mental and spiritual health of your life, but in exchange for the algorithm, you did what it said. You went to bed when it said, you ate what it said, you exercised in the way it prescribed. Would you say yes or would you say no?
So would you give direction on all your things in your life? 3, 2, 1.
Oh, people are wondering how long is your lifetime?
So I guess, okay, so everyone kind of has their opinion identified. It's yes or no. You kind of have in your mind decided.
No, but there's maybe and yeses, and now there's a follow-up question of how long would it in your life? Because I want to know why I'm following the directions of something that's specific. Yeah. It's in my life, but I don't know to what extent. So can you qualify it?
Yeah. So you actually don't know what's going to happen. So if you have in your mind, like if you said no, and you said no because you're going to make the argument that you think free will and autonomy is the most important characteristic of your existence. And if you can't have that and spontaneously decide to stay up all night and watch your favorite movie, if that's your model, that's your thought process, then that's fine to say no, but you don't know anything about what the algorithm will do. So the only thing you know is you are going to report it's the best physical, mental, and spiritual health of your life. Outside of that, you have no idea what's going to actually happen.
So the question then would be, like, if we were to mean this, the question would be, would you follow the advice of AI if it told you to eat poop every day? Would everyone in the audience do it? Like, and then if it extended your life 30 years, like that's the mean version. So if the AI extended your life 30 years, but you had to eat poop every day, would you guys do it? There's actually more yeses for that.
So it's actually, it's not even extending life 30 years. You don't know. Like the only thing you know is you report it's the best physical, mental, spiritual health of your life. That's it. Outside of that, you don't know how long, you don't know what's actually going to happen. You have no details.
Totally. Bryan, I want to take the conversation back to this topic of gene editing, and this is, this is kind of like one that's going to need some brain power. I have read up quite a bit on concerns around CRISPR gene editing, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but for the audience, there's this idea that we can edit our future children's genes, that we can make superhumans, arguably, that we can make a child that's resistant to HIV and sort of eradicate the problem for them. But the big concern that pops up is that if we make a population of children, for example, that is resistant to HIV, you can have the virus adapt to become a supervirus, where while our children are safe, you have an entire third world country get wiped out in exchange for our safety. And I understand that with a lot of the stuff you're talking about in terms of gene editing, that takes money, So I imagine in the future we are going to wind up in this sort of predicament where we can kind of save ourselves or kill the other. And I know that's like a really tough predicament for a person like you, perhaps a person like me, even, where I'm like, I would like to live forever. At what point does this mission have to really take into account the other and say, is this worth it?
Yeah. In thinking to that previous example I shared of my son in college, of him not knowing what to study because he doesn't know what the world is going to be like in 2 years' time. I think that is true for our understanding of reality. And so when we think about the future, we use the things we know to imagine good and bad futures. We model what has happened in the past, what is happening in the future. And if you try to do a thought experiment, say, let's imagine we travel back in time and we're hanging out with Homo erectus 1 million years ago. And we ask Homo erectus to imagine what existence is going to be like, in 1 million years. We would laugh because of their inability to imagine things like holding a white pill in your hand and you swallow it and it just gets rid of infection. Or if you have a little black box and you talk to anyone in the world in real time. And so if you contemplate the question, will the 2030s make the 2020s look like the 3rd century? And will the early 2040s make the 2020s look like 1 million years ago or more? Like, we may be making that much evolutionary progress in these very short time frames, which means we may be as equally as primitive as Homo erectus, like basically rendered entirely useless to say anything intelligent about the future.
Brian, I hear what you're saying, but I feel like you're not answering my question, so I want to be more direct. I know it's a tough question, but researchers are concerned that if we edit our DNA, we edit our genes, that to make us healthier, that viruses, for example, will be forced to adapt and will become much more dangerous for people that can't afford the same treatments as us. Is that something that you feel like, and this is not putting you on sort of the judgment chair, but it's a real moral question. To save me, I could be putting entire poorer countries in danger. That's a tough question. Sorry.
Yeah, so I hear you. What I'm trying to get at is, I know you're trying to basically question a moral system in application. And you're probing me of my moral systems of what I'm trying to say. And I could certainly say my opinion about a given thing, but I don't think it would be useful in this conversation because it wouldn't be original. I think the original contribution to the conversation is to say, we're building computational systems that do things on our behalf. And sometimes they incorporate morals and ethics. They supersede and they're emergent. And so what I'm saying is it's a thought experiment that the way we pose questions and think about the future may be antiquated. We may be at the end point where our modeling of reality no longer has utility. And so these thought experiments, they're fun, and they pit our moral systems against each other. They force us to make these really hard decisions, but they're human systems of morals and ethics. They're not this emergent competition that's happening in the world. And so I would say that, that'd be my take, is maybe as dissatisfying as that may sound to you.
Okay, so bring it on sort of a positive note and sort of an uplifting note. Can you tell us, I want to focus on the decentralized science part of it. What are some of the areas that sort of traditional academia is failing you and that decentralizing science can help you? Where are there's flaws in the current academic system? As a very N=1 experiment, this is a very different way of doing science, right? Whenever you go to your principal investigator, the first thing that they ask you is, show me more data, right? I want to see more data. It's not enough just the N=1 abnormality that you're seeing. So what you're doing is you're really sort of pressing on academics and the whole academic institution. So I'm wondering if this new way of doing science has elucidated anything else and any other ways in which decentralized science and that democratizing it can improve and help the longevity movement.
Yeah, agreed. Basically, there's a very obvious question of why is longevity research in academia? Of all places we could put it, why is it there? And why is the money being structured? Yes, exactly. It's like, so basically, like maybe in society we just have it in the wrong place, and decentralized science is actually the right place because it gives it room to actually build the processes to follow the steps. Like if you need more data generation, like you're in a better environment to try to accomplish those first steps, or you're in funding environments, or like it basically like it's probably a instead of a top-down diagnosing like what is wrong, or I'm sorry, what the answer is, it's probably more practical to say, how do you get the systems right so the systems solve the problem? And I think what you're doing as a group is exactly that. It's a new system of solving problems.
Yes. Yeah. Guys, if you're in the back, please be quiet. It's like overwhelming. Be quiet. Be quiet. Be quiet.
And the traditional system in which we evaluate this is called meta-analysis. So it's where we look at the studies of the studies. And the problem with this is that it usually takes a very long time. It's usually inaccessible in its own way because you have to be a certain type of expert. And also, it's usually only certain type of studies, looking at a very specific type of thing. So longevity is actually very broad.
Yes.
Whereas typically, like the first meta-analysis study was looking at people with depression and figuring out like whether or not psychotherapy was actually effective for them, right? And it was one of the first ways that we looked at large-scale data and said, oh, actually large-scale data is effective in the psychological field in particular. So what you're doing is you're combining that, along with what Mike is doing as well, with AI to evaluate the data. So then my question would be, how do we, we're at this turning point between tradition and what we call like the gold standard of research, which is usually, placebo, they're double-blind studies, they are long-term, they're meta-analysis. But a lot of the technology that's coming out now, we wouldn't be able to make those types of studies for many years, when most of us would maybe not be on this earth. So my question is, how do you balance that in your own system, and how do you suggest to other researchers or people that are creating these research systems like Mike, how they should approach this as we're entering the 21st century?
Yeah, my approach has been trying to create demand for the products of science, whether it be in academia or whether it be decentralized. So I'm reminded of the quote, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And people, like, in many ways, like when people do Botox and fillers and other things, they're trying to apply anti-aging science. Now we know those things are not truly rejuvenated, right? Like they basically mask the effects of aging, but the market size is really big. And if there were better alternatives for them doing that, they would adopt them. And so what I've been trying to do is bridge the world of demand of true rejuvenation, where just like in a 4-minute mile or the first time Earhart flew a plane across the Atlantic, where people are like, like, is this really possible? Like if my speed of aging is down to 0.64 and I get it to 0.5, and people are like, okay, I'm not entirely sold on this, but like I'm in. I wonder if the demand side of the equation is actually going to be more efficacious than doing bottoms up. Right? Like when you're trying to change science institutions and the funding elements, like all the elements that we struggle with, that's such a hard fight versus starting from the demand side. And so when I try to piece out the world, I try to say, like, how could I as an individual try to generate impact, like the biggest fulcrum possible, that'll be relevant a few hundred years from now. I'm trying to flip the cultural zeitgeist to care about extending lifespan. In the immediate ways people care about for looking good, to longer things of being capable physically, mentally, etc. So I guess I don't want to suggest I've got expertise on how to solve big structural problems, more to how to loosen them up with a different cultural want.
Right. Just one follow-up. So this goes back actually to the populist model of Dr. Briger, who makes all of his information accessible, basically. So again, just another invitation to think about working with people who have volunteer organizations that are doing this and have a cultural movement, along with what Mike's doing with SBM.
So I understand about the building the demand. I just want to follow up with like as a science community here, like once we sort of built the demand, how can we contribute data to make sure that we're supporting the cause and we're like contributing data to a like how do you think about once we build out demand, everyone in this room is 100% on board with living forever. Like what's sort of the step two? And I think I've heard you speak before, and it's like I think your argument is that the AI is going to save us. So, but the AI sort of needs data for that to work, and it needs models, and it needs compute. And I think the area where you can have the biggest impacts, perhaps, is in getting people to also want to live forever, but then also sort of contributing something around the data set that is needed to live forever. And I just wanted to think about if you think that is an important problem, or if you're trying to really grasp on that data, because that seems to be the crux of it. OpenAI, there's going to be new types of transformers, and NVIDIA is going to continue to get better and better GPUs. But sort of the opportunity in the decentralized science and the longevity, especially in something where everyone wants to live forever, and the gamified approach is the data, right? And knowing the N=1, what you're doing right now, and you have a team of doctors, but it costs $2 million a year, but in a couple of years, the $2 million, an AI agent is going to be more powerful than that 2 million doctors, right? If you're a doctor. And so what can we do to contribute data and to validate data sets to make longevity possible?
Yeah, to be clear, I don't necessarily think that AI is going to save us. I think AI is creates a turning point for us as a species that we need to solve. Is my contention. In terms of your question on the data set, I mean, I've spent so much time over the past couple of years with companies trying to do this, and I wouldn't profess I have any special knowledge on the unique way of doing this. The only thing I guess I'm trying to contribute is I'm trying to imagine what if a political party in the US found that the right version of nationalism was a don't die nation state, one where governments used to ask their citizens to die, go to war and die. That was the source of earning honor. And so I'm really trying to play at a macro scale for society. Yeah, if there's political will behind this, if this is a source of national identity, if society is behind this thing, then the will starts to crank, and then we get more resources to try to solve these very practical problems of how do you get data, how do you get funding, how do you create structures that are friendly in regulation. It's these functional problems are so hard, and they get 10 times harder because the institutions just bear down and make them hard. They get stuck in this bureaucratic grind. And so I'm trying to unlock it by putting a tailwind behind it to say, actually, this is something we find national pride in, that we distinguish ourselves on the global stage by doing this thing. That to me is one interesting way to try to galvanize this entire area without basically struggling to make no progress by trying to change these really deeply entrenched bureaucratic institutions and processes.
We're going to have Amna ask a question now.
Hi, Bryan. We're going to come from upstate your laptop. Hi. Can you see me?
Yes, hi.
Hi. Okay, so my question is, I know that this is a DeSci event, meaning decentralized science. I want to ask you a question that is in favor of centralized science. Every major scientific breakthrough that we've seen in the modern age has been really delivered by
the government. So, when we went to the moon, that was thanks to a space program which was funded by 4% of GDP. We don't see that level of investment in science today. And what you're talking about requires a huge amount of investment. And I haven't really heard you speak about the government except for in this last answer. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on the role that the government can play in longevity research and what your hopes are for the outcomes of action.
Yeah.
And obviously to add to that, the largest way that we can expand lifespan of everyone in a nation is to provide universal health care. Somebody got excited about that one.
Yeah, so I agree with your question. It's like, how do you galvanize society to generate the resources and the good and the will and the capacity in any way, shape, or form? And so I went through this process methodically, and I tried to evaluate of the options available to me. So I can come at this game and I can say, I'm going to fund a particular study, or I'm going to support a certain university, or I'm going to do this thing or that thing. But like, I think this really is like, so a few macro trends seem interesting to me. Like one, like the United States kind of feels rudderless. Like, who are we? What are we fighting for? What do we care about? Like, are we proud to be Americans? We bicker, we fight each other all day, every day over everything. We don't really have any form of unification on anything. And so I wonder if the approach, like, so what I've tried to do is to say, of all the possible routes available to me as an individual, what is that path? And so I agree. That's why I go in my mind to like, Don't Die is a bottoms up and a top down movement. Bottoms up, where it's people's daily habits that build into mimicry, for everyone starts practicing it, where it becomes a cultural norm. And then top down, where you have basically, hopefully, politicians and economic systems that embrace Don't Die. And so, like, for example, I created a genocide leaderboard where I said, okay, if we know smoking one cigarette is 11 minutes of life, and then if you do some back of the math envelope, looking at the density of fast food places, you look at a given neighborhood and it has a pretty similar effect where a Happy Meal costs you basically 11 minutes of life. Like eating Big Mac, burger, and fries is the same as one cigarette. And so I created a score of revenues on companies that sell, and I created a genocide for what they're doing in society. And so this goes back to morals and ethics, where it's okay to do that in society, but what if it wasn't? And so I agree with all of you, I guess based upon all the questions you've asked, is we're all trying to poke at this exact same problem. How do you unlock and remove the blockers to rapid progress in science? And we talked about data, we talked about politics, we talked about funding, we talked about like all these very real things we contend with on a daily basis. And like, who knows whose approach is going to work? You've heard my approach and what I'm trying to do. I hope it's positive in contribution, but it's just a big puzzle, and it's more social, I think, than anything else.
Amazing. Okay, and Bryan, I know you can't see, but there are literally hundreds of people in the audience here, all listening. We have a ton of RSVPs for this, and there's a ton of people in terms of the packed audience. So you can't see it, but we just want to let you know. Okay, let's do a couple of questions from the audience. Who wants to ask a question? Anyone? Anyone?
Can we make a statement?
No. Okay. Just keep it brief, like a couple sentences. Yeah.
Mine's nice and short. Do you believe in God?
Is that allowed?
She wants to know if that question's allowed as well.
I'd like to see some evidence.
Not enough research.
Okay, we have another question for you.
Thank you for speaking. My question is about whether you think working with the fear of death has any value in figuring out how to live longer.
Yeah, I would say that's what a good question, and probably way too complicated to answer in any kind of short form.
You don't have an answer.
Rapid fire.
Just answer it.
We have a couple of questions. We're going to end it.
Human is a multi-level system. It has molecules, cells. Yeah, humans are multi-level systems. We have molecular level, we have cell level, we have tissue level, we have brain, we have activity in the brain, etc. So every level has its own methods to fix. Molecular has biochemistry, maybe nanotechnology. Cellular level is available right now. So,
What's your question?
my question is how to choose the strategy, or how to strategically approach all the directions.
He's saying that the cellular life has multiple levels. Well, he's saying that biology has multiple levels, not only cellular. How do you focus? Which level do you focus on when you're trying to figure out how to extend it?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a great question, and I think that's what the field of longevity is trying to sort right now. You've got people playing at every layer, so I think they're all valid, and we're trying to figure out what the power laws are. So I mean, you see that in like Yeoman active factor programming. You see it in all the different interventions. So it's TBD.
We're gonna have one last question for you.
All right, I'll keep it short. But you mentioned peptides earlier, and I know that there's a very large community that's been online of people kind of experiencing different peptides, sort of, increase longevity or improve quality of life. Is there any that you recommend personally?
Recently, we've been working with cerebral lysin, and subjectively speaking, we don't know how to measure it. So that's the difficulty. Subjectively, it's been the best thing we've done for cognitive cognitive enhancement. But again, we don't know what the proper protocol is. We don't know how to measure it. We don't know how much is too much, how much is too little. So it's really a hard one. But subjectively, it's been fantastic.
Okay, and this will be the last question. Sorry.
Bryan, thank you for speaking on this today. So I think we've all seen your prolific nighttime erections or your tweets on nighttime erections. And I think the natural next answer is steps part of the blueprint protocol. Like, what are your thoughts on these, like semen retention, weekly erections, and all of this good stuff that we're all wondering?
Love that question.
So I'm so sorry. I heard it's a question about erections. I didn't hear the specifics.
She's wondering how semen retention and other sexual practices, say tantra, how do they play into your routine?
Yeah.
Do you have a great sex life? Is what she's asking.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I currently don't practice semen retention. It is on our list as a team to do research next. We have not evaluated it to see if there's any evidence. We have not seen what the evidence of semen retention is and what benefits or detriments may be caused. So it's on our list to research soon.
Okay, guys, quiet in the back. Okay, we're wrapped. Got it. But we want to know, how can we help you? What do you need help with? We have hundreds of people here who are on the Don't Die train, and they want to get involved. Should they follow you on Twitter? Should they participate? Should they get a good night's sleep tonight? Like, how do we support the Don't Die cause?
Yep. So first, thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed being there. I'm very sad I'm not there in the room with you to feel you. I feel really far away from you. I feel like I don't understand the vibe of the room or the context of the question. So yeah.
We're gonna try and no, don't unplug it. Don't unplug the system. Guys, give it a big shout.
Amazing.
It goes all the way back into the far back. There's literally hundreds of people here.
Yeah, so it's wonderful to see all of you, and I'm so grateful that I can be with you. Again, I wish I was there to feel a more personal connection with each of you as we talk about these topics. They're difficult ideas. It takes time. So I'd say a few things. I would encourage you to try to be Don't Die in your life. We humans can be happy in any configuration. if we're going to bed on time, and we're eating well, and we're exercising, and everyone's doing it, that's going to be the norm, and we'll forget that we ever wanted debauchery in the first place. And so try to be don't die in your life, because when you do that, you give your friends strength for them to do it as well. But we're all playing mimicry to try to fit into the social tribe. So do your best to have personal health habits that are good. Number two is we're launching a Don't Die app. And so I'm trying to bring us together, all of us, working on all the different aspects of Don't Die, whether it be decentralized science, or whether it be people doing biotech, or whether it be lifestyle interventions, like whatever. I want us to be together and be a social force in our various endeavors. And then three is I would love for you to be, for you to self-identify with Don't Die as a primary identity. That when you think about yourself, if you're an American or you're a New Yorker or whatever your identification is, that Don't Die is an integral part of how you understand reality, and as the most common sense and practical way that we address this moment as a species. To me, when you zoom out on planet Earth, right, like you try to soften, you try to eliminate all the noise, like all the stuff going on, and try to say what is really going on. It's just one thing happening on planet Earth. It's what do we do as a species as we give birth to superintelligence? Nothing else matters. It's all background noise, and we need to get this thing right. And so, for me, when I survey the world and I say, who's got a plan? Like, who has any idea whatsoever you do? Right now, it's just kind of like we're going to wing it. And I want to propose that Don't Die across politics, economics, morals, ethics, culturally, is the most practical plan we can have as a species. And it sounds unthinkable, but I think that it really is like the way we can bridge ourselves into this new evolutionary path which we're on. So thank you for having me. I've loved hanging out with you guys. I hope to meet you in person sometime soon. But really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you again, Bryan, and have a great rest of the night.
Thank you, friends. Be well. Good to see you.
Bye.
Night.
And now we have this amazing now we have the foster children, angels from foster children. They're going to do an amazing set tonight. And then we're going to run out of you guys have to go to bed. All right, so guys, enjoy being here, get connected, and see about Don't Die.
I'm just gonna play forever young until they play.
Wednesday or okay. So I'm actually putting a shirt inside of
Does it work with the plank?
From the Oxford? Yeah. Oh yes. I was like, I texted you like, no matter who's about it, I'll like. I wonder how I can be more integrated in the community so that if there's a future event or something, that's also difficult, I can be known as oh, this is someone in the community. What do you think? So I have to ask Mikey, what specifically he was doing. Oh, you can end this now. Actually, never mind. I'm gonna ask him. I know he has a group chat for volunteers, and the volunteers just kind of came in a little bit early and just kind of signed people in. Are you interested in that? Okay. I already have your Telegram, so I'll just make sure that he does it. Okay, cool. Yeah, no problem. basically, Mikey has DeSciNYC like for the events, but then he has a company named Science Validation Network, the developer.
Oh, cool. Oh, I'm also a developer.
Oh, awesome. Wait, what do you like?
What does the org do?
I'm sorry?
What does the org do?
So it's a startup that's trying to build data validation on the blockchain. And what that means is basically we have like an example demo. Actually, I can show you.
I was all the way in the back. That's why I said everyone needs name tagging or something so we can know. Please take questions.
Now I want to email Bryan Johnson. Like, everything that he was saying, like, we're just so on the same wavelength.
Here, he's giving my regards.
So this is just like an example demo of the infrastructure. So what we did was anyone could submit a restaurant, but a bunch of AIs will go out, they'll call the restaurant, they'll email it, they'll look at the recipes, they'll go to their menu and check all their stuff, and check if they use seed oil in their ingredients. But it's more so the infrastructure where you submit like data, and it will tell you if it's right or wrong. So if you say like the moon is blue, it should be able to tell you you're wrong or you're right. But the goal is that you could do research decentralized, because somebody could submit, say, a physics formula, and it goes and sees if it's right or wrong by running it in physics simulations, and a robotic arm somewhere is testing it or whatever. So it's an infrastructure between submitting data and validating it. But yeah. Right now, we use the blockchain in order to, so like, if you ask everyone here at the same time, is the moon red? Some people would be like, yeah, but there's nothing to lose if they lie. So we have a system where you have to put up a few tokens with your claim, and you would only give up tokens if you know your thing is true. So it kind of prevents like this entire room from coming to consensus on a lie. That's like kind of where the crypto part comes in. It also comes in where, to say we all submitted our health records and we found the cure to cancer, we all get the economic benefit of that because we all participated in providing the care. So it's that part to like pay out people too.
Very cool. Yeah, actually, maybe could you say something about like how blockchain works, blockchain and validation works more broadly? Because I feel like I'm understanding it. I've never actually looked into it, but this is like where that's leading. So can you say something about that?
Yeah. So just say like in Bitcoin, what happens is everyone's trying to sell.
What's up? Good to see you again.
Yeah.
My friend Gary. You went to Shoes Art? My ears. Yay. Alright, we're gonna jack me up? Alright. Let's go. What's your name? Maya, nice to meet you.
But I never met you.
Yeah.
This is Ryan.
We met in the lab. Gary, you work with Nike, right? Nice to meet you. You're the same person as me. How'd you guys meet?
We're in the same dorm. Bobby really looked up to me. I like guided him through like
Got me through the whole college. You taught him well. You taught him well.
Wait, did you all go to school with him?
Yeah, we all went to Stanford. That's how we know Mikey. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I met him at one of these events. So I went to do that AI stuff.
No, I mean, things are getting bigger and bigger every time.
Yeah. This is the biggest one so far.
Yeah, this is huge. Very eclectic crowd of people. And it's, it's a very diverse crowd. I feel like I'm at a factory.
We have to work on getting like better venues for everyone to be able to see.
I know, you gotta get everyone here. I feel like next time you gotta do like an auditorium.
Yeah, no, like after I saw that there's only been 2 screens, I was like,
I know, we couldn't see from the back.
Yeah.
We should have gone in here in person.
Yeah, no, that would have been like optimal.
Did you tell them how many people were coming?
Bryan Johnson? He must have. I don't know. I wasn't able to contact him.
It's funny because
keep on coming to that.
Yeah, I'll be here at the next many. What was your name?
Tommy. Are you on IG?
Yeah. Yeah,
Let me add you on IG.
I'm like kind of inactive on IG, but like I'll see it.
The Kardashians. Yeah.
Wait, what?
He's like in a commercial with them. Why is the stream Bryan Johnson? Why is the stream? He's like a celebrity now.
Hold on.
So you know Mikey from school?
I know. Mike go to Stanford too? What's his name?
I don't know. He was doing his PhD there or something.
Okay. I never. And how did you like meet him there?
I think just in the CS department. There's a lot happening. Don't you like how they show me? Dude, why not? Who's this DJ? Jesus Christ.
What?
Who's this DJ?
I don't know.
Where did you
It's
find
so
this
loud.
picture? You're so like extreme. I almost don't die as a mouth.
DeSciNYC turned into a rave.
What? I know. Straight up a rave. like marketing, like the tweeting. I feel like he's just like he doesn't account for it in like a silly way. Like he's like, oh, I'm gonna tweet about my Titanic. I don't know if you saw. He's like, my erections are as long as the Titanic. It's like it's 3 hours or something. But I see what you mean. That's cool. I'm thinking about it.
Maybe you should introduce me to my
intro. I don't.
No, it's not cool.